Lieutenant Governor Perdue.
Well, the Wilmington race riot period in our history was awful. It was a blot on North Carolina, but I can't not mention the fact that I think the sterilization of all those women without their permission is one of the most heinous things I've heard of in all of the world. It makes my blood boil as a woman, and those women should be paid back, and should be paid back. Some of them are still alive. Minority contracting is a real issue in this state. I believe that most of us understand that the state is made up of small business owners, not big, huge businesses, and we need to do all we can do to help those folks get successful contracts, both with the government and in the private sector. And that has to be under the leadership of the next governor of North Carolina. You may have seen my proposal this week on open government. It's called Google Government, so that any contract made available by the state of North Carolina would be on your computer, so you could go there and figure out what it is you could compete for and bid for, and how you get those contracts. And then even better yet, you can find out who those contracts were awarded to. So there would be some final parity in the playing field in our state's business, and that would serve as a carrot, I believe, to force the private sector to do more with minority contracts. We've got some great examples, you all, across this state of minority businesses that are super because they have stepped out and taken a risk. In the 21st century, it's all about innovation and entrepreneurship. It's about thinking differently. It's about believing that any of us can own a successful business if we can find the liquidity to get the idea off the ground. That's how you build a new North Carolina.
Colonel?
I agree with Judge Orr about the large corporations. I think that's a very good point, so I won't belabor that. 778,000 small businesses in the state. Many of you probably work for one of those. We need to help them more. We need to do more things for them. We can give them tax relief. But you see, the current structure in our state does not give them tax relief, but taxes them more. And over again, they have to pay more taxes for certain things. Talk about health care. Let's give them a tax credit on their corporate tax when they file their tax return. That'll solve part of the health care problem. If you work for a small business, do you have health care? You probably don't. But if we give them a tax break, you probably would. Let's support our small businesses. They're the lifeblood of our community. I have a lady who I go and have breakfast in the morning at her little cafe. And she tells me, you know, I have to collect the sales tax for the state, but the state doesn't pay me to collect the tax. I have to have an accountant do that. Why don't we turn 1/4% of that sales tax back to her, put this money back into the community? Politicians believe that when the money comes back to the people, it's gone, and that's wrong. When the money comes back to the people, it turns over in your community 7 times. That $1 turns over 7 times to give you sales tax of about 49 cents. So put the money back, give it to people, give it to small businesses, and they will take care of a lot of the problems we have. And minority businesses have to be at the top of this category. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Justice Orr, you'll start us off on this question. Black infants die at twice the rate of white infants in North Carolina. The AIDS infection rate for blacks is 10 times the rate for whites. Over 1.3 million people in our state, including 400,000 children, cannot afford health insurance. Question, what will you do as governor to close these racial gaps in preventative health care and make sure no one is denied health care because of money?
I think anybody in government and any citizen with a conscience has to be concerned and heartbroken when you hear those kinds of statistics. But what can government do? What can we do to change that? First of all, I know there's been a lot of focus on insurance, but the bottom line is we have to have an adequate supply of medical personnel. We've got to have enough doctors, enough nurses, enough medical technicians to meet the needs that we currently have and the growing needs that are coming. And we've got to have the kinds of incentives that locate these medical personnel in the communities that most desperately need them. And let's face it, it's also an economic development tool, because who's going to come to a community that doesn't have adequate health services? We've got to make sure we have not only access, we've got to have the right numbers, and we've got to do everything we can to provide affordable health care. Now, the question is, do you believe the government is going to be the best source of affordable health care, or do we as private citizens have to understand that the long-term best solution to health care access for all our children and all our citizens will be primarily in the private sector as opposed to relying on government to deliver it?
Lieutenant Governor Perdue?
Healthcare is a passion with me. It's what got me into politics. And let me start out by telling you what I'll do as your next governor. I'm going to make sure that every child in this state has health insurance, and I'm going to help working parents have that same kind of insurance too. It's a moral issue with me. Health insurance ought to be there for children and for low-income families. And I've got a track record of making that happen. As a healthcare leader in the General Assembly, I did the floor debate to make sure those 115,000 children today are covered with children's health insurance. I sponsored the Patient's Bill of Rights so that all of us could have good health care. And as Lieutenant Governor for 7 years, I've been the healthcare leader of this state. There are projects working that has affected every single family in North Carolina. Prescription drugs for old people, called the Best in America by the AARP. This week I was in Robeson County, where I had an opportunity to talk with a young woman named Dr. Peace. She led one of the community health centers in Robeson County, and I was there to look at the project that I've helped lead for the Health and Wellness Commission. It's a disparities project, because I understand clearly that minorities and low-income folks across the state suffer at an inordinate rate from stroke and cancer and diabetes, stuff that are preventable. I talked to Dr. Peace as we looked at her disparities project. It was incredible. I said, how did you get to Robeson County talking about a healthcare workforce? She said, I got there the way most people get to rural North Carolina. It was to pay back my medical debt. She'd been there for 10 years. She was going to stay in Robeson County. She told me that because of this little grant that she had, that she was going to change the lives of her patients, 16,000 patients a year. She said, Bev, I am going to make a difference. Folks here are going to understand that diabetes is beatable in Robeson County.
Thank you. Colonel Nielsen.
There's one basic principle that has to do with health care and has to do with several other things. And that is this principle I have, and I'm going to tell you what it is. Don't give any more money to the politicians in Raleigh. They're going to misspend it. So if you give them more money for health care, it'll go for something else. I'm telling you. So find a way in the private system to fund that health care. Now, I'm going to be there, so, you know, I'm going to want the money then maybe, but right now I don't. Don't give them more money. They misspend it. They always do. Let's go to a system of private health care system. Secondly, everybody does not need health insurance, but everybody needs health care. And today, we are providing that for people, and we need to continue to provide that for people. The people that don't have health insurance, we'll deal with them. But the number is not as big as they want you to believe. So let's work on that. Our healthcare system is overcrowded right now because we have people who are illegally in the healthcare system that shouldn't be here, and they're overcrowding the system. We've got to be sure that people who are not supposed to be here and not supposed to be in the healthcare system need to go somewhere else. That may be kind of harsh, but if we don't solve this problem, it will overcome us very quickly. So let's make sure that people that are using the healthcare system have a right to be there, and then let's take care of our own people. Thank you.